Imagine working for 40 years, showing up every morning, paying taxes with every paycheck, believing that when retirement finally arrives, for millions of Americans, that possibility is no longer a distant concern. It's becoming a countdown. And according to current projections, that countdown points to 1 year, 2032. Now, something unexpected is happening in Washington. The Trump administration is exploring an idea that could completely change how retirement works in America, not by creating an entirely new concept, but by studying a system that's already working somewhere else. And surprisingly, that inspiration isn't coming from Wall Street. It isn't coming from Europe. It's coming from Australia, a country that most Americans rarely think about when it comes to retirement policy. Australia has a population of only about 27 million people, less than 1/10 the size of the United States. Yet somehow, it has quietly built one of the strongest retirement systems in the world, a system that financial experts across the globe now study closely. So, why is Washington suddenly paying attention? What did Australia figure out that America didn't? And could this model actually help solve one of the biggest financial challenges facing the United States? To answer those questions, we first need to understand the problem. To answer that, we first need to understand why America's current system is running out of time. Let's go back to 1960. At that time, more than 5 American workers were paying Social Security taxes for every 1 retiree receiving benefits. The system worked because millions of workers supported a much smaller retired population. But over time, America changed. People began living longer. Birth rates declined. The population grew older. And today, there are fewer than 3 workers supporting every retiree. The balance that once kept the system healthy, the math is becoming harder every year. More retirees, fewer workers, and increasing pressure on a system designed for a very different America. Numbers don't have emotions. They simply tell the truth. And right now, the numbers are sending a warning. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the Social Security Trust Fund could run out of money by the year 2032. That doesn't mean Social Security disappears completely, but it does mean something millions of Americans don't want to hear. Without action from Congress, benefits could be reduced by nearly 28%. Imagine depending on that monthly check, only to see almost 1/3 of it disappear. For many families, that isn't just inconvenient. Experts estimate that the average retired couple could lose roughly $18,000 every year. That's money for groceries, medicine, housing, electricity, money that many retirees simply cannot afford to lose. Healthcare costs continue to rise. Food prices remain high. Housing has become more expensive. Every dollar matters. And that's exactly why the future of Social Security has become one of the biggest financial questions in America. But while America was struggling with these growing challenges, another country was quietly taking a very different path. Instead of waiting for a crisis, Australia began preparing decades in advance. Over the last 30 years, Australia built a retirement system designed around one simple idea. Don't wait until retirement to start saving. Make retirement savings automatic from the very first paycheck. That system is called superannuation. Most Australians simply call it super.
Love seeing that 12% go straight into my super.
The moment someone starts working, their employer begins contributing money into their retirement account automatically, every paycheck, every month, year after year, whether the employee thinks about retirement or not.
Every employer is legally required to contribute 12% of an employee's salary into a retirement account called super.
That one rule has helped create one of the largest retirement investment systems anywhere in the world. And this is where the story becomes even more interesting. In Australia, it doesn't matter who you are, a teacher, a nurse, an electrician, a construction worker, or someone working in an office. The rule is exactly the same for everyone. If you're employed, your retirement savings begin automatically.
And here's the part that surprises most Americans. There is no opt-out. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to remember. You don't have to decide later. It's simply part of having a job. Every payday, your employer contributes directly into your retirement account. No paperwork, no complicated decisions, no waiting until next year. The money starts working for your future immediately. And when you change jobs, your retirement account doesn't disappear. It follows you. Your new employer simply continues contributing to the same account. One worker, one retirement account, a lifetime of continuous investing. Now compare that with the United States. For many Americans, retirement savings depend on several important decisions and several important opportunities. First, does your employer even offer a retirement plan? Second, do you actually enroll? And third, does your employer match your contributions? If the answer to any one of those questions is no, your retirement savings may grow much more slowly. That's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of what-ifs, and every delay means less time for your investments to grow. Australia removed that uncertainty. Workers don't have to remember to save. The system saves for them, quietly, automatically, every single payday. Then something remarkable begins to happen. Those regular contributions are invested. The investments earn returns, and those returns begin earning returns of their own. This is the power of compound growth. Year after year, decade after decade, small contributions become surprisingly large amounts of money, not because people became rich overnight, but because they stayed invested. Today, Australia's super funds manage more than 4 trillion Australian dollars. Think about that for a moment. More than $4 trillion, saved specifically for retirement today. Now remember something important. Australia has only around 27 million people. The United States has more than 340 million. Yet Australia has built one of the world's largest retirement investment pools. That's extraordinary. In fact, Australia now ranks as the 4th largest retirement savings market in the entire world, a country with a relatively small population, competing with some of the world's biggest economies. But none of this happened overnight. There was no secret investment strategy, no miracle stock, no shortcut, just consistent investing, repeated year after year, for decades. That's the beauty of compound growth. Money invested today earns returns tomorrow. Then those returns begin generating even more returns. Over time, growth begins to accelerate on its own. Experts estimate that by retirement, nearly 75% of the average super balance doesn't come from the original contributions. It comes from investment growth. That's the real engine behind the system. In other words, your employer's contributions are only the starting point. Time, patience, and disciplined investing do most of the heavy lifting. The international rankings tell the same story. Australia consistently receives one of the highest ratings for retirement security. The United States ranks noticeably lower, not because Americans work less, but because the systems themselves are fundamentally different. So the obvious question becomes, if Australia's retirement system has produced such impressive results, why hasn't America adopted something similar? The answer has very little to do with investing, and almost everything to do with politics. If Australia's retirement system has delivered such impressive results, why hasn't the United States simply copied it? The answer is much more complicated than it seems. The first challenge is scale. Australia has a population of around 27 million people. The United States has more than 340 million. Building one retirement system for a nation that large would be an enormous undertaking. Every worker, every employer, every paycheck, every contribution, across an entire country. Creating that kind of financial infrastructure would be one of the largest reforms in modern American history. Then comes the question of cost. If employers are required to contribute between 5 and 12% of every employee's wages, businesses would suddenly face much higher labor costs. For large corporations, that might be manageable, but for many small businesses, it could be a serious financial burden. Some economists believe employers could respond by slowing wage growth, hiring fewer workers, or passing those costs on to consumers. Supporters argue it's an investment in workers' futures. Critics worry about the impact on businesses today. There's another important difference. Unlike Social Security, money in Australia's super system is invested in financial markets. That creates the potential for much higher long-term growth. But it also means retirement balances can rise or fall, depending on market performance. It's a trade-off. Greater opportunity comes with greater risk, and finding the right balance between security and investment growth would be one of the biggest debates in America. Then there's politics. For decades, even small changes to Social Security have sparked intense debate in Washington. Imagine trying to redesign the entire retirement system. That would require bipartisan agreement, something that's often difficult to achieve. That's why, even though discussions have begun, no one expects change to happen overnight. Major reforms take years, sometimes decades, and the future of any proposal ultimately depends on Congress. Still, interest in Australia's model continues to grow. President Donald Trump has spoken positively about the country's retirement system, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has also highlighted the strength of Australian super funds, particularly their long-term investment success. The conversation is clearly gaining momentum. At the same time, the administration has already introduced Trump Accounts for Children, a separate initiative designed to encourage long-term investing from an early age. The idea is simple. The earlier you begin investing, the more time compound growth has to work. But it's important to remember, these children's accounts are separate from the proposed retirement system for working adults. For now, an Australian-style employer-funded retirement system remains only a proposal. No final legislation has been passed. No nationwide program has been approved. The discussion is real, but the outcome remains uncertain. Meanwhile, the Social Security clock continues to tick. Every year that passes, the financial challenges become harder to solve, and the decisions facing lawmakers become even more difficult. Whether this proposal eventually becomes law or never moves beyond the discussion stage, one reality has already become clear. Depending on just one source of retirement income has become increasingly risky. Perhaps the biggest lesson from Australia's success isn't simply mandatory employer contributions. It's the importance of starting early, saving consistently, and giving your investments enough time to grow through the power of compounding. Time may be the most valuable investment of all. America now stands at a crossroads. One path continues relying primarily on a system under growing financial pressure. The other explores a new approach, inspired by a country that quietly transformed its retirement future over the past 3 decades. Which path America ultimately chooses remains to be seen. No one can say with certainty whether an Australian-style retirement system will ever become reality in the United States. But one thing is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The future of retirement may look very different from the past, and preparing for that future may require thinking beyond the systems we've always known. So now we'd like to hear from you. Do you believe American employers should be required to contribute to every worker's retirement just as they do in Australia? Or do you think that would place too much pressure on businesses? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more clear, fact-based explanations of the biggest stories shaping America's economy and financial future, subscribe to MoneyVistaX. Thank you for watching.